Silver is definitely disappointing a lot of people right now. Things are getting very bad, very fast, but for some reason, silver is just not affected by it. Now, there's a lot of speculation to why, but I wanted to get someone's insight, their input, their opinion that's been in the game for a while. See, Lori Williams just put out an article titled "Silver Disappoints Again." Once I skimmed through the article and saw the points he was making, I knew that I had to cover it for you. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are very confused on why silver is actually dropping and not rising. Looking at the circumstances, it should be the exact opposite. Well, this article is probably the best guess to why that is, or the most accurate. Now, he starts off to say, despite the recently released World Silver Survey from the Silver Institute, which I call the holy grail of information, right? Once they put out the data, the information, nothing's above them. Everyone else uses that information. Highly speculative and a lot of controversy because a lot of people say they're not incorporating certain numbers or not factoring in this data, which is true. I mean, it's extremely hard to get accurate numbers on silver demand and production, especially when you look at all the different things silver's used for and then factor in investment demand, yada, yada. It can be extremely hard. But the Silver Institute, no doubt, is what everyone uses, right? But anyways, prepared by specialist precious metals consultancy Metals Focus, pointing to a fourth successive year of demand exceeding supply. And actually, most articles are saying 6-year highs right here. See, silver demand hit 6-year highs. But anyways, he goes on to say, still prices have been extremely disappointing for the metals followers, especially in the past week, right? I mean, silver is doing some very odd things right now, and I can actually show, let's look at a chart of what silver's doing. So the last week is actually a straight decline. We can look at the 1-month chart, but the last week, I mean, look at this. This is, we're up to $25.17 and now $23. That's a $2 decline in a week. For something like precious metals, that is insane. And given the circumstances, things should not be that bad. It's very confusing. But anyways, he said both gold and silver are turning down again in early trading today too. And he even makes the point right here. One might have anticipated a strengthening in the price with global inflation rising along with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But in recent days, both gold and silver prices have been showing some strong degrees of weakness. Now, I know that there's a lot of different things that factor in the price of silver, but you still have the main things, the main influencers that are at the top, right? But there's also stock market volatility, but the dollar index, the shortage, FOMC meetings, even just the speculation before the meeting happens, all that type of stuff has the bigger pull, right? But there still are all these other things. Now, if you put, like I said in my last video, a lot of these macroeconomic factors can, as a whole or in large groups, pull down some of the main reasons, and I think that's probably what we're seeing here. But anyways, silver in particular can be seen with the gold to silver ratio rising back to above the 80-to-1 level, and that means that gold is outperforming silver. When the ratio is lower, that means silver is outperforming gold. So, and he even explains that right now, right here. But anyways, equities and Bitcoin have been looking weak too, while the US dollar index has been rising in anticipation of an above-average U.S. interest rate increase at the early May FOMC meeting. Now, a lot of speculation goes around the FOMC meetings every time Federal Chairman Jerome Powell comes out and says how many rate hikes or whatever. Even if it's not a fact, or even if they just say words like expect, or they aim for, or they hope to achieve these numbers, people will invest and I guess react as if those numbers will for sure happen. And then you could see why the markets are almost in this false state, because then once the numbers do come out, or once they finally do realize what is happening or what did happen, then the markets correct back to the actual price. But anyways, The Silver Institute survey does not hold out many crumbs of comfort for the silver investor. And here we get into the meat and potatoes. Despite the prediction of yet another year of demand exceeding supply in 2022, on the other hand, we are perhaps a little more optimistic for the prospects for both of the most traded precious metals. By the way, I'm not going to keep breaking off. I want to read this article in full, or mostly in full, but I did want to say something right here as well. So they're saying, so demand exceeded 1.112 billion ounces, right? We're talking about a massive demand. I don't see how, I don't see how the production, the supply is ever going to be able to keep up with it. And even if we try to play catch up, it's going to take a long time. But the amount of time it will take to catch up will be in, 3-4 years from now, which is when demand will be at probably 3-4 billion ounces, just because of the new age, the digital era that we're advancing in. So we're never going to be able to catch up. And low supply, high demand pushes the price up. It might not be spot price that pushes up to the crazy degree that we're thinking of, but the physical price of silver, or if you want to buy an actual ounce, physical, tangible ounce, you're going to definitely have to pay crazy premiums. And I even interviewed one of the founders of Bullion Max the other day, and he even said, premiums aren't going anywhere. They're only going to go up. So something to consider. But anyways, let's keep moving on. So on the other hand, said we're more optimistic for gold and silver, the most traded precious metals. Contrary to the survey, our prediction is that the U.S. Fed will tighten the economic screws in terms of interest rate rises and balance sheet reductions faster than the equities markets will be comfortable with, in turn leading to a further sharp of U.S. stock market downturn. This will likely be followed by bourses around much of the rest of the world, which could result in a safe haven countermove in the major traded precious metals. And then he goes on to say, in our opinion, the Fed is unlikely to be able to raise interest rates sufficiently, and that's to have much, if any, discernible effect on inflation, which will leave real interest rates comfortably in negative territory, which is obviously positive for gold. Silver tends to follow gold's price path, and if past performance is anything to go by, it may well rise the faster percentage in terms, with the gold to silver ratio coming back a few notches accordingly, meaning silver will outperform gold again, although still not by nearly enough to meet the aspirations of the silver bulls. That the Silver Institute survey sees silver demand posting steady gains in the next few years to successive record highs. Industrial demand, for instance, is expected to see initial gains as economies continue to recover from the situation, though structural change in much of silver's improving industrial demand picture is reckoned to be in growth sectors. But any impact as a result will likely be limited and will take time. Good example of the industrial growth areas are photovoltaics, PV cells, and solar panels. And this is kind of what I was just talking about a few minutes ago. Principally solar panels and the demand growth for electric powered vehicles, both hybrids and even more so battery electric vehicles. These have higher silver loadings than internal combustion engine equivalents, and so this shift will be aided by government legislation banning the production of sale of internal combustion engine-driven light vehicles, already being introduced in some markets, should help drive the rapid silver demand growth. Like I was saying, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the demand from 1.112 billion ounces in today's time to 4 or 5 billion. I mean, every automobile company by the year 2030 will be electric. The entire world is trying to go green, go solar panels, PV cells, photovoltaics, that's silver, 5G towers, right? Silver lithium ion batteries, so many things. There's no way that the demand is just going to stay around 1 billion ounces. I mean, just investment in demand alone. What the COMEX has, 900 million ounces on there. That's just investors. That's not that's not demand, or that's not production, right? We're talking about numbers that just aren't realistic. Just like if everyone on the COMEX tried to turn in those contracts into physical delivery, the silver shortage would easily be exposed. Now, nobody No, 9 times out of 10, they never turn in that contract. But actually, if you want proof of what it would look like, the Hunt brothers did try to turn in all those contracts. They owned 77% of the global silver supply on the COMEX, and they tried to turn every contract into physical delivery. Obviously, the government wasn't going to let that happen, so they put a law out on the spot banning silver. You couldn't buy silver on the COMEX. You had to sell it, you had to liquidate it, and you had to sell it back to the government. When the Hunt brothers did that, tried to liquidate 77% from the digital side to physical, that's when silver was the highest price ever, $50 in 1980. That was when the Hunt brothers cornered the market. Still till this day, that's the highest price silver's ever been. Just to get an idea of what that would look like. They also say like every ounce of physical silver you own, 100 other people theoretically own that same ounce on the COMEX, because those are just digits on a screen, but the only person that owns it is the person that has it in their hand. But anyways, offtake in the current leader for green economy silver usage, which is photovoltaic demand, should also see modest gains in the next few years as capacity additions fueled by lower CO2 targets and a desire to boost energy independence will counter ongoing thrifting. The biggest thing that will hurt the silver shortage won't be them learning how to reduce the amount of silver. It's like 58 grams in an EV down to 20 something they're aiming for. I think it's going to be recycling. We already see the Royal Mint now scrapping laptops and cell phones for silver, I'm sure because of the massive shortage that they're experiencing, which they admitted, same along with the U.S. Mint and the Perth Mint. But we're going to see recycling kick up. I think that's going to be a bigger influence on production than just learning how to cut down, because windmills only last a couple of years. There's a lot of things that don't last very long, but the amount of silver that's thrown away, as most silver is used in the technological sector, the digital sector, the industrial sector, I think there's much more benefit trying to get that silver back, recycled, not just learning how to cut down 58 grams to 20 something grams. But anyways, jewelry demand is also expected to see yet faster growth. Much will come from assumed global recovery from this situation, in particular any lift to consumer sentiment. So anyways, he's just talking about, now he's just kind of talking about the demand versus the supply, which I talk about all the time. Supply side, Silver Institute survey sees annual mine production continuing to rise, with Mexico, Chile, and Peru. Peru's not on here. Usually, Mexico and Peru accumulate 40% of the global silver supply, just those two countries alone. But anyways, he says Mexican and Chilean output in particular growth phase. The Russian output's rather more uncertain, although with sanctions likely to affect the key Western equipment and technology. It is pretty interesting just to see, like I kind of said, it's these macroeconomic factors, I think, that are all, that there's so many more than just the plain black and white, this is what silver should be doing right now. There's a lot of other factors behind the scenes that are at play, and I think that's kind of why things don't make sense right now. But anyways, he ends the article to say prospects look decidedly mixed, with the forward price pattern will likely depend on geopolitical and or geoeconomic developments, primarily impacting the price of gold, with silver following in gold's path. But I do see a day and age where silver will take on a life of its own, regardless of what gold's doing, regardless of what the dollar index is doing. Silver is going to do its own thing, and that's because of the low supply and the high demand. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. What do you think about this? Silver definitely is disappointing, but for me, just take advantage, buy low, right? It's supposed to buy low, sell high. Don't buy high, hope it goes higher. That's not investing, that's gambling. Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.